Our story begins inside of the Marauder, the ship of the Bad Batch, taking off from the Republic clone hangar on Coruscant. Just a handful of hours ago, Clone Force 99, also known as the Bad Batch, was called to Coruscant for an extremely secretive mission. They spoke to Jedi Masters Mace Windu and Kit Fisto, who assigned the Bad Batch to go to the planet Sereno. From there, they were to infiltrate Dooku's castle, which was still heavily guarded since his death, but they were to search for any information regarding a man called Sidious, as the war was supposedly in its final days. The Jedi didn't disclose much more, just saying that this was vital information, designed for a secretive clone force just like them. That was the first time the Bad Batch had ever been inside the Jedi Temple, and they were about to enter hyperspace for Sereno, when Tech suddenly informed the group that new orders were being sent to them. It appeared that Grievous was engaged by Kenobi, and now the Supreme Chancellor was putting Order 66 into effect. Tech, Hunter, Echo, and Wrecker looked around curiously, wondering what Order 66 was. But then from the back of the ship, the cold, snake-like voice of Crosshair told Hunter to turn the ship around. They have orders to return to the Jedi Temple. Hunter naturally asked why, so Crosshair said that the Jedi were all traitors, set for execution, and good soldiers follow orders. What the rest of the crew did not yet know was that Crosshair's inhibitor chip was now activated, so upon hearing Order 66, he was determined to follow orders. The rest of Clone Force 99, especially Echo, couldn't believe this. Echo said that the temple is full of younglings, innocent children that did nothing wrong. How could all of the Jedi be set for immediate execution? And how could the clones be doing this? This didn't make much sense. So he, too, urged Hunter to turn around, saying that this mission to Sereno means nothing if the Jedi are all dead. They must go help the innocent. So, during this, Tech stayed silent, researching everything known about this order that just came in, and he came upon a deeply hidden file from Clone Captain Rex. He was familiar with Rex, and Tech was able to decode this file after a bit of work. And now a hologram of Rex played, detailing that something that Clone Trooper 5s had discovered not long ago, and how perhaps the inhibitor chips inside of the clones have a purpose that they yet do not know. It was soon clear to the group that somehow these chips were just activated to kill the Jedi, and a sudden stun blast was heard from the back of the ship. Echo hit Crosshair with one, saying that his chip must have activated. The rest of the batch nodded, remembering how robotic Crosshair became upon hearing the order, how he wanted to just go down and kill the Jedi younglings. So now the Marauder turned around, and the Bad Batch headed straight for the Jedi Temple. Upon reaching the hangar, a temple guard informed them that the temple is locked down until they get word that the Chancellor has been arrested by Master Windu. Hunter spoke to the guard, saying that the Chancellor has enforced an order to kill the Jedi, and that they seem to be the only clones immune to it. Moments later, the hangar door opened, and Jedi Master Shaak Ti stood with a group of temple guards, allowing the Marauder to land. The Bad Batch hurried out, as Tech and Echo quickly described everything they knew, saying that the temple may be in immediate danger. As they spoke, though, Hunter put his hand up to silence them, then closed his eyes and felt the ground. Using his enhanced senses, Hunter could feel hundreds, no, thousands of boots marching in the distance towards the temple. He stood up in alert, ordering Tech to take Crosshair to the medical bay in the temple with Shaak Ti, see if his chip can be removed. Echo then asked Tech to see if he can find a way to disable all of the chips at once. It's likely the only way to stop what is coming. As Tech and Shaak Ti ran to the medical bay, Shaak Ti told Hunter that she has no choice but to trust him to ready the Jedi, while she warns those near the medical bay of what's coming. So now Hunter ran with Wrecker to the temple entrance, looking down to see the clones now marching up the stairs. Inside the temple, about 100 temple guards stood ready, while any able-bodied Jedi Knights were also preparing for a fight. Unfortunately, most of the Jedi that were able to fight were out in battles across the galaxy. Inside the temple, there were mainly only teachers, healers, injured Jedi, and younglings here. Sure, there were some fighters, there were some temple guards, but it was not nearly enough. They knew that they just needed to buy some time, give Tech the time he needed. So Hunter ordered Wrecker to buy them some time, take down some of the nearby pillars in the temple, some of the nearby statues, and throw them down the stairs at the upcoming clones. Wrecker laughed, saying it's about time he get to mess with some regs, and lifted a pillar that would usually take at least 10 clones to lift, throwing it down the stairs. Anakin Skywalker was leading the clones up the stairs, and he looked up now to see a giant pillar tumbling at them. He reached out with one arm, grabbing it with the Force, crushed it into a bunch of smaller pieces, then threw it back up the stairs. As Wrecker went to throw another pillar, he was hit with the pieces thrown by Anakin. He slowly got back up, telling Hunter that this was not going to be a fair fight. The clones have help. Then they lined up with the temple guards. They had maybe 1 minute until the clones breached the entrance, so Echo now came and accessed the door security systems with his robotic arm, closing the blast doors, hacking the security systems so the doors cannot be opened. Without Force, it would take a lot to get them open. With this time bought from Echo, Hunter took off for the Jedi Temple hangar. He got to the Marauder, jumping into it and flying the ship around the temple to see the stairs. Soon enough, he got into firing range, and he fired missiles at the bottom of the stairs. Anakin tried to slow the missiles, but he was too late. They connected with the stairs, separating half of the 501st and sending them tumbling to the ground, delayed, at least for now. Anakin reached out with the Force though, grabbing the Marauder, and he pulled it to the ground. Inside of the ship, Hunter decided that he had enough of this, so he ejected into the smoke, using a jetpack to fly to the top of the temple as the ship crashed into the ground. He used an emergency roof entrance to go back in and meet the temple defenses, saying he did what he could for now. And now he stood with Hunter, Echo, the temple guards, and knights as the doors to the temple exploded open, and clone troopers began running in from every single angle, firing at everyone in the temple. The 3 members of the Bad Batch tried their best to hold the line with the guards, but the 501st was truly the best of the best. They moved quickly, taking out the first line of defense, and so the temple defenses had to start to move back. As they did, Echo tried to see who was leading them. It was a hooded man with a blue lightsaber, a Jedi, and he was cutting through the temple guards like it was nothing, one by one. And then the man turned, making eye contact with Echo. It was Anakin Skywalker, and Echo stood here amidst the firing, in complete shock. Anakin recognized Echo in the Bad Batch, and he began moving forward, like a man without any remorse, recognizing how powerful, how great the Bad Batch was, wanting to just get rid of them right here, right now. And he prepared to swing down on Echo, when a sudden blast hit Anakin in the shoulder. He stumbled backwards, and another blast perfectly hit a pillar that then fell down, separating Anakin and the 501st from Echo. Echo looked up to see Crosshair, a patch on his head, now helping his brothers. Echo nodded at him, then retreated into the temple's main hall. Unfortunately, the main area was quickly being filled with clones that arrived to the side entrances of speeders. They were closing in, taking down Jedi in training rooms, healing centers, meditation bays, and in the center of it all now, Crosshair, Hunter, Echo, Wrecker, and Tech stood in a circle, firing at the 501st clones. Well, almost all of them were firing. Tech was plugged into a central databank, gathering as much information on the chips as he could. With Shaak Ti's help, he had just removed Crosshair's chip and quickly been able to study it, discovering that it was voice-activated. Without the help of the Jedi Temple's advanced technology, he would not have been able to figure all this out, but the temple was like a playground for Tech's abilities at this point. So now, Tech was working on replicating the voice of Palpatine and hacking into the communication systems of all of the clones, so he could try and issue a shutdown order for the chip. The main issues were that it would still take a bit more time, and there was a chance it could kill all of the clones that received the shutdown order, but he had to try. Seeing that he was successful removing Crosshair's chip only gave him more hope, and the members of the Bad Batch continued firing. No 501st clone was getting near them, but moments later they were all thrown back with extreme force. Through a cloud of smoke, Anakin and his blue saber emerged, charging once again for the Bad Batch. But before he could reach them, Shaak Ti and Syndrellic got in his way. Then Shaak Ti turned, urging the Bad Batch to get to the tech center, continue their work, try to save the Jedi Temple. So 3 temple guards told the Bad Batch to follow them now, and so they did. Before turning a corner, Echo looked back to see Anakin decapitate Singe Relic and then take on Shaak Ti. And this filled Echo with so much anger. How could Anakin do this? Soon enough, they made it to the Technology Center, allowing Tech to continue his work, while Echo sealed the door and Wrecker barricaded it with whatever Tech wasn't using. Crosshair said this is not what they signed up for, but Hunter said the children the clones are trying to kill didn't sign up for this either. Crosshair nodded in agreement, and the Bad Batch members readied their weapons as 501st members began working to break down the door to the Technology Center they were hidden in. Tech said he was nearly finished with the voice replication and the communication hacking. He just needs a few more minutes. And then the door broke down. Hunter, Crosshair, Echo, and Wrecker now found themselves entrenched inside of the room, surrounded by the bursts of blaster fire, as clone troopers closed in. Hunter's enhanced senses allowed him to anticipate enemy movements, while Crosshair's sharp shooting skills thinned the troopers' ranks. Echo strategically placed explosive charges, creating controlled chaos amid the advancing enemy forces, while Wrecker, fueled by his raw power, charged headlong into the fray. His massive frame became a whirlwind of destruction as he single-handedly confronted the clone troopers in close combats, while the other members took out any clones that could get close to Wrecker. But the 501st had strength in numbers, while the Bad Batch had strength in ability. The numbers soon got too overwhelming. Wrecker was hit in the shoulder and leg with blasts, and he was forced to roll away. Tech was stuck in cover, with Hunter and Crosshair having their cover blown, leaving them very vulnerable. Right as the Bad Batch was about to be taken out, shot down, a high frequency rang inside of all of the clones' helmets. Every single 501st member paused, grabbing at their head, as the voice of Palpatine, replicated by Tech, began to speak, telling them that Order 66 has been disabled. Any clone who participates in Order 66 will be executed for treason. No one else would have been able to issue this command, but the clones, hearing the Supreme Chancellor tell them to stand down, suddenly had their chips start to be deactivated. And throughout the temple, 501st members stopped firing at Jedi, dropping their blasters in confusion, coming to their senses, realizing what they were doing wrong. And inside the Technology Center, the Bad Batch, along with around 25 newly healed clones, watched as Anakin Skywalker entered. Anakin quickly realized something was very wrong, and then every single blaster was lifted up at him, saying he has committed treason and is to be executed for his crimes. At this point, the clones knew what Anakin did. He participated in tricking all of the 501st clones. He participated in slaughtering countless Jedi in this temple. Though many of the Jedi were saved, he still did terrible things, and committed the highest of treason. The rejuvenated 501st clones felt extreme betrayal towards Anakin, and they quickly began firing. Anakin blocked the shots, force-pushing the clones away, flipping out of the room, only to find every single other surviving 501st member now lined up outside of the Technology Center, blasters pointed directly at him. Anakin's own men, staring him down. But before they could fire, before they could do anything, Echo ran up, taking Crosshair's sniper rifle, firing a shot right through Anakin's heart, saying, "Loyalty means everything to the clones." And as Anakin fell dead, Echo walked up to the rest of the men, all of them standing in shock, and said it's time they take this fight to the man at the top, Palpatine. Palpatine was sitting in his office with a scowl on his face. The Force was dark, darker than it had been in years, but something was wrong. He was receiving no reports from the Jedi Temple. He could no longer feel Anakin, Vader, in the Force. Sidious decided it was likely that someone turned Anakin back to the light. How predictable, he thought, and so he stood up, preparing to get to the temple himself, when suddenly a blinding light shone into his office. He looked out to see clone transports and speeders heading towards him, and now Sidious realized it wasn't Anakin who turned against him, but the clones. But how? He didn't even have time to consider how, as suddenly 501st clones spread out into his office from the door, while outside of his broken window, countless speeders aimed at him. Sidious pulled out his lightsaber, but it was no use. The hundreds of clones fired at him, completely obliterating the Supreme Chancellor, Sith Lord Darth Sidious. In the main transport outside the window, the members of the Bad Batch watched. and when he was dead, Tech landed at Palpatine's communicator, and then Tech was able to send a message to every clone throughout the galaxy using his voice replicator of Palpatine, shutting down Order 66. And across the galaxy, clones realized what they'd done. Cody fired at Obi-Wan, Wolf fired at Plo Koon, many Jedi were dead, and all the clone commanders were left with the only realization of what they'd done. From here, the Bad Batch would go on, returning to the temple with the 501st, speaking to the Jedi, assuring them that it was over, that Anakin and Palpatine were dead, and that they were no longer under the control of Palpatine, that they were truly, deeply sorry for what they'd done. Within hours, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Yoda would return to find the destruction. Echo would find the Jedi, telling them what happened, including the events with Anakin. Over time, the Republic would learn the truth about Palpatine and Anakin, and Padme would learn the truth as well. She would go on to have the children safely, but very, very sad without Anakin. The clones and the Kaminoans would be forced to reveal everything they knew about Sidious and Dooku. Of course, the clones had no real involvement. They had the chips put in them without knowing, but the Kaminoans played a huge part. They knew all about Tyrannus' involvement. So, they would go on to be arrested, and the cloning facilities on Kamino would have to be shut down. While packing their things on Kamino before the facilities were officially shut down, the Bad Batch learned that Senator Chuchi was being elected as Supreme Chancellor, and as they were leaving, a young girl named Omega snuck onto their new ship, joining the Bad Batch for whatever comes next, as the clones were kept in the New Republic as the police force to maintain peace for this rebuilding galactic government. And yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought. A couple things I want to talk about regarding this one. When I tell stories like this, what if this small event happened? What if this clone force was at the temple during Order 66? I know maybe it's more realistic that, Anakin just kills them and still succeeds Order 66, but if I'm telling this story, I do want to change it, and I want to just have it be much different, because I don't want to tell a story and have just a very small detail change. That's no fun, so I do go with the more fun, maybe less realistic route. That's what I prefer. I think it makes it more fun. Because the way I see Star Wars is, everything went perfectly for Palpatine, so if some small details are changed, he loses, I think. So, that's how I like to do it. Appreciate you guys for watching. Thanks a ton, and I'll see you in the next video.